Kirk Baumgartner, excited to have you on the podcast. I'm hosting. I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing. How many times have you been doing podcast interviews?
I've done a couple of them. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How about the nice studio? Do you
Nice
appreciate
studio.
this?
Yeah, this is really cool. This is really nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. I've known you for many, many years. You're one of the people that I have done a lot of real estate with throughout the years. Kirk is amazing at what he does. He takes care of clients at a fantastic level. And you also are an architect. So I kind of want to start there. Tell me how architecture and real estate come into play for you and your clients.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks for starting there. I have been actually doing architecture for a long time. That's what I have my degree in. I went to college for that and got my degree in architectural drafting. So I was trying to figure out the other day how long it's been.
And how long has it been?
Yeah, and I don't know. I can't remember. I think I was like going back with my wife and we were like trying to figure it out. Okay, when did I graduate? But I mean, it's. I think it was like 96, something like that, when I graduated. And then I got right into like working for some engineering firms, and then I started into like actual residential architecture kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's been over 30 years that I've been doing architecture. So
architecture been your first love, really passionate about it. And then when did the transition to real estate start to happen, and what was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, so I was working for a company, doing some house plans for quite a while. And then if you remember 2007, 2008.
I don't know. Anybody remember those years? Were those a little bit crazy? Maybe just a teeny tiny bit?
Yeah.
Economy was crashing. Stock markets were going down.
And the housing market went bam like that, you know. So the firm I was working with, they were like, okay, we pay you the most, so you're the first to go. So I was let go from there, and I decided, okay, well, I'll go out on my own. And so that's when I went out and started my own company and started doing architecture. And I had this realtor that used to come to us and buy plans from us, from the company that I work for. And she used to always tell me, you should be a realtor. You should be a realtor. And she'd always like bug me every time she came to the office. You should be a realtor. And so finally, about 11, almost 12 years ago now, I was like, okay, I'll become a realtor. So that's kind of when I thought, well, you know, architecture and real estate, they kind of go together. So I can kind of work with both of them at the same time. And so that's when I did that.
Yeah. So talk about that a little bit, because, you know, when it comes to architecture and real estate, they do go together. And, you know, I don't know if anybody out there has built their own home, but there are a lot of little things that you need to think about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so many different attentions to detail. And I think as a real estate agent, that's one of the parts of our job that we can really give some thoughts to clients of like, hey, you know, can you consider that this layout kind of might have these deficiencies, and kind of pointing out things. And I'm sure you see that a lot more actually in architecture, where you're like, hey, I like the house plan, but you guys might actually want a storage closet because those might be important for you down the road. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And so, in fact, this is the funny story. So I've been designing houses for years and years and years, and then we actually built our own house, and I designed it. And everybody should know that even architects, what you see on paper sometimes doesn't translate into the real world. You know what I'm talking about? So we built our house, and there's things about my house that
you're like, why did I change this?
You know, I would actually change that. I'd say, okay, that didn't quite work out how I thought it would. So yeah, I mean, the experience of being a residential architect and designing homes really has helped me to see things in a different way, and then seeing houses built. So I really, really like to go out to the houses that I design with the builders who will let me, and go out and see how it translates into being built. So I can actually say, okay, maybe we need to tweak that on the plans to make it build a little bit better, make it work a little, be more functional, you know? So, you know, I think that that's a good, it did end up being a good transition to get into real estate, because yeah, I can talk with clients and say, you know, this might work good for you now, but what about, you know, in 2-3 years when the kids are a little older, you know, then what are we going to be looking at? And, you know, a few things like that. And especially lately, with the real estate market the way it's been, a lot of people, they're sitting on low interest rates on their houses. They don't want to move They don't want to go buy another house and get into a 7% interest rate or whatever, you know. So they're doing a lot of additions and a lot of remodeling on their houses. So I'm helping people a lot with that. And so that has been a big help too, because then I can help people. Okay, I can draw the plans. I can look at your plans. I can see, okay, yeah, you can do this, but you better not try that because that's going to get really expensive. So that background of being in architecture has really been helpful in that regard also.
Yeah. Can I just do a public service announcement to anyone who is building, designing their own home, unless you have crazy amounts of money that you want to throw away, you should also design the house to think that maybe for the next future buyer, how they're going to like your house. Because there are a lot of people that design stuff that works for them, right, in the moment. And I can appreciate that because it's like, it's your money, your house, build it how you want to. But what happens when they build something that the next buyer isn't going to like because it's so specific to their taste?
Yeah. Yeah. And I always tell people when I'm working with them, I'm always telling them, hey, look, this is your house. I will design it however you want. You know, it's your house. But during the process, I'm going to be giving some tips and some things, you know, to kind of suggest things along the way that you may want to think about. You don't have to do it, but, you know, my experience says you should do this. So here's an example. I was designing a house for these people. They lived up on the Bountiful Bench. And since it was kind of up on a hill, their driveway was just kind of winding up the hill to the house kind of a thing. And they had these 3 cats that they just loved. And they wanted the cats to be able to see them coming home. So I had to design these 3 1-by-1 windows that were, you know, 4 to 6 inches off the floor. So the 3 cats could each sit in a window and watch them come home.
Ooh.
So yeah, the next buyers are going to come in
what the freak
and they're
is
going to
this?
go, what are these 3 little windows on the floor?
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, you know, and that's the thing with real estate is people do need to think about resale, right? I actually went to a house last week in Sandy, and they had 3 bedrooms upstairs and only had a master bathroom.
Oh.
No bathroom on the main, no bathroom on the upstairs other than the master. The people had to go all the way to the downstairs. And this was a house built in right around like the early 2000s. So like, we're not talking, right? Like, the builder should have known, right? And he was kind of trying to go for a little more of a modern look. In what ways, you know, modern homes, there's times where it just seems like that's what everybody's going to be building. And then times where, I don't know, it kind of just seems to ebb and flow. What do you see the future with modern homes as it continues to get more and more popular?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question because I know a lot of people, they're trying to kind of break that, I don't know, what would you call the Utah?
Just the traditional housing mold. Yeah.
So people are trying to figure something out to kind of set themselves apart a little bit. And so the modern really did become a big thing there for a little bit. But at the same time, it kind of sticks out unless you're in a subdivision where there's a lot of that. You know, then it just kind of sticks out in a traditional kind of a neighborhood. So then, you know, you're, like you said earlier, you're looking at buyers who are very specific. You know, they're looking at it. So I don't know if the trend's going to continue with that kind of modern. I'm designing one right now, so it still is some. Some people want to stand out, but I don't know that it's going to become like the thing. You know, I think people still like the traditional look.
And you know what's interesting? I was told this early on in real estate that like trends will come and go, right? And they'll like recycle like stuff we built in the 70s. You know, you'll wait 30 years and then it will kind of start to come back.
Yeah.
And I started to see that in real estate, and I saw it in my kids' clothing, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like the trends of the corduroys and the 90s colors. And it is so interesting. But yeah, how do you see trends kind of recycling throughout the years? Because you've been doing it for 30 plus years. So how has that been a thing?
Well, here's an interesting one that I've kind of seen start to come back. So remember back in the, I don't know, 70s, 80s, the houses were very compartmentalized. You know, you had the kitchen, you had our dining, you had a living room, and you see all these little rooms. And then, so as you walk through houses and you're showing clients through houses, and you just kind of walk from room to room to room, you know, those kind of things. Then we kind of started transitioning. People wanted the big open space. They wanted the big,
open concept.
Yes, open concept. They wanted to just tear down all the walls of those older homes and just open the whole thing up. Well, I see coming back a little bit that compartmentalizing rooms again a little bit. People are like, I don't want the big open concept. I don't want, everybody that's in the family room coming over here in the kitchen. And sometimes I want the dining a little bit more sequestered and things like that. So I am seeing that a little bit more, that people are kind of going against the open concept a little bit.
Yeah, and it's funny how that trend just different trends, and I think you're right. You get enough of a group of people that point something out, and the one that I've heard with the open concept is, I don't want people to be able to look at my dirty dishes or have to be peering into my kitchen and it has to be spotless.
Yeah.
If they're just going to kind of come in through my front door. So yes, I would love to separate this.
Yeah.
But then you have people that want it open too. So
yeah, when you walk into a model home, that big island there and that big open area, and you're just looking, you're just kind of wowed by it, that big granite countertop on the island and everything. But what's realistic? Is the kitchen always beautiful? No dirty dishes? Is that always just going to be completely spotless like the model home is? No, it's not. If you have any kids anyway.
Yeah.
So
I think it might be more of a noise factor too, right? If it's kind of like separating, because I've got 5 kids. I know how noisy it can get. So to have like a little bit of space to kind of drown out some of that noise might be where people are going with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so architecture, get into real estate. I know one of the key things that you do really well with clients is just really putting their needs first. I know realtors, it's hard because this is our livelihood, this is our job, and so you naturally want to make sales. But what was your business philosophy in trying to do what's right for the customer versus just making a sale?
That's a good question, because, and I think maybe I kind of have a little different approach when I got into real estate with the clients and things like that, because I had a thriving architecture business going. I had clients, I had work, I had things going on there. So for me, selling a house wasn't do or die. It wasn't, if I don't get this sale, how am I going to pay the mortgage? How am I going to put food on the table for the kids? So I didn't have that kind of pressure with it. And so I went into it kind of with the same philosophy like I did with architecture. Like, this is your house. I want to design this for you, kind of a thing. I kind of went into the same thing. It's like, this is your house and it's a huge investment. And I know that you're going to be emotional through this thing. And so I'm going to try to be a stabilizing person in this whole transaction. I'm going to try to be calm through this thing to help you get this. And I want to make sure that it works for you, because I don't have to make the sale. If it doesn't work for you, then we move on and do something else. And so, I don't know, I guess that was helpful for me when I first got into real estate, to where I just didn't have that anxiety of, I got to make sure to get this sold, no matter what. So, for me, it was, I don't know, I put my heart into the people rather than the sale.
Yeah. Do you feel like, knowing the stress that building a home is, and by the way, it is so funny, not for me. I mean, I guess it is for me in the industry, but it's like when people talk about building a house, it is amazing how many people are like, even if they have the money, right? Even if they have the time, like, we're not putting any constraints. It's interesting how many people are like, no way do I want to build a house. No way do I want to take on that stress. No, the decisions, all picking out the colors and the things, like, no how, no way. But how has that kind of translated, is understanding that stress and anxiousness that comes with building a house. How has that translated to being the calm voice in residential real estate for your clients?
Well, that's a good question. Because there's a lot of people that I help them in building their first house, where when they get done, they're like, we're never doing this again.
Because it is difficult. And I want to acknowledge that, right?
Yeah.
Like I think we do it enough that it
Yeah.
doesn't seem as daunting.
Yeah.
But yeah, to the average everyday person, that is very difficult.
Yeah, it is very difficult. And so yeah, I mean, trying to help alleviate, that kind of stress, trying to be the person that is like the buffer, between all the stress and everything for your clients, I think is the number one thing, is just trying to absorb all that, which, it's a good thing to do, to try to absorb that for your clients and everything. But a lot of times it's a pretty heavy burden too, that we as agents kind of take on sometimes too. If you're really invested, and I think a lot of agents really are, then I don't know. I kind of liken it sometimes like, I don't know if I could ever be a psychiatrist, and sit there and have people coming to you day after day, and they're coming to you and just unloading all of their issues and all of their pressures and all of their stuff onto you, because I would take it. I would take it on,
Yeah. Which I think that's why, right? That's your superpower and your curse, is because you're one of those people that, like, if you were the psychiatrist, you want to make the impact.
Yes.
You want to, like, hey, I see you, right? I get you. I feel you. I see where you're coming from, and I want to empathize with that. Because the optional world, in my opinion, is that you just go completely numb, right?
Right.
The psychiatrist, and you're just like, oh man, this guy, I am not going to attach to what he's saying, because his whole life is a mess, and I'm just going to hear and watch the show and not try to empathize at all. So it's kind of a tough ground
Yes.
in real estate, because we do have to do that, where you are empathizing with the clients, and it is so stressful. It is so stressful when people are selling, moving at the same time, gathering stuff, appraisal goes bad, the inspection goes bad. So yeah, what is your advice for people that are kind of gearing up for that stressful move? How can they be helped?
Well, I think my biggest piece of advice is, and I talk to my clients all the time about this, and it's just try. You can't always do it, but just try to just go into it and say, this will all work out if it's supposed to work out.
Yeah. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Yeah. And try to go into it with that kind of an attitude, because I'm going to do my darndest to help it work out. We're going to do everything we can to make it work out. And your side of it is just to do all that you can to make it work out, listen to the advice and do the things that I tell you to do. And we're working together. We're trying to make this thing work out, and we're all working towards it. But sometimes it just isn't meant to be, and things fall apart, and you'll find out later on, oh yeah, I'm so glad that didn't work out.
Right. Totally.
Yeah. I've had a couple of clients actually where that has happened, and they've gotten back to me after the fact and said, man, I'm so glad that didn't go through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I guess that's the biggest thing.
And I love just, people don't know what they don't know. And so to be able to have a resource to say, is this normal? Is
Yes.
this not normal? Right? Give me the feedback. And I think a lot of realtors make that mistake where they don't recognize that they are the authority, right? Your clients are looking to you for guidance, for advice. And you should have it, right? You should know exactly, because you've done it dozens and dozens of times, to say, here is what's normal, here's what's not normal. And quite frankly, they miss that opportunity.
Yeah. And I have to admit that communication is the biggest thing, throughout this transaction of getting real estate for people. And I've had to really, really work on that. And what I mean by that is, I never want to go into it and have people feel like I'm telling them what to do. I don't want to be like this authoritarian, dictator saying, you got to do this, and I won't, and make it seem like I know everything, because I don't know everything. And so I don't want to come across that way. And so sometimes I kind of back off too much.
Yeah, a little too gentle.
Yes, and I'm a little bit so hesitant to say what to do that I don't communicate what they some good tips and pointers and things like that that'll help the process along. So it's been years, for me to kind of maneuver through all those situations, and I've had some really, really good situations with clients and some really bad situations, and each one, you try to learn, okay, what can I learn from that to become better? So, that's been the hard part.
Yeah. So let's talk about personality style, because this is where my mind goes to. That has been a big learning curve for me, and now that I found it, it's been so super helpful. But people kind of fall into different categories. Some people are very, very analytical. They want to know all the numbers. They want to know all the details. Some people are just what we call drivers, right? They just want the facts, fast, quick, get it done. Some people want to feel through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so how have you related people's personality styles to the way you would communicate to them in helping them throughout your career?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because there's certain personality styles that I don't gel very well with. And so then, you realize that fairly early on to where you're like, okay, I'm going to have to adapt to this. I'm going to have to really morph my own personality a little bit to make sure that we're on the same page. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't really work. So, but yeah, there's been a few, like I say, that the tough ones where the personalities just didn't mesh very well. And so you get down to the end and it's emotional. We talked about that already. We're having a very emotional kind of a thing going on. And there's been times, long conversations on the phone. And that's when I've had to just kind of throw my own stuff to the side and just get on the phone and just talk and just say, hey, look, let's go over this. What is it that I'm not doing to meet your expectations? What are you expecting here and you're not getting? Let's talk about this. And I've found, I don't know, just in the years of doing architecture and I meet with people like this across the table all the time, going over their plans and what they want, what they need, that sort of thing. Same thing with real estate clients. You're sitting down with them, you're walking through houses, talking about their wants, their needs, and all this kind of stuff. And I've just found that most of the time, if you just are open and honest and just ask the questions and just say, hey, what can I do better here to meet your expectations? How can I help?
Yeah. Even if it's sloppy.
Yeah.
Right?
Even if it's just a mess and I just bumble my way through it.
I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say, but we're not quite connecting.
Yeah.
Let's just get it out on the table and talk about it.
Yeah. If you just throw it out there and just let that communication go back and forth, then people usually work it out. And
that's the truth, because that's the invitation, right? Here, I know something's off. I know it's not quite meeting an expectation. So let's try to fix it, is at least opens the door, right, for that opportunity, as opposed to just, I'm going to sweep it under the rug and hope that they're not quite, that it just eventually works itself out. That's where resentment can build.
Yeah.
That's where, their anger can continue to build to the point where now you get to the closing table and they don't think you did a good job.
Yeah. Because most of us were a little bit hesitant about confrontation, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's just the truth of, I don't know if it's human nature. I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know if it's human nature or what it is, but most of us just don't like confrontation. I don't know, and for me, a lot of it is I don't want to let people down.
Yeah.
And so, I don't want to get into that to cause them to, oh no, I let you down kind of a thing. I don't want that to happen. But I've found anyway that usually if you just open up those doors, just throw them wide open, just slam them open and just say, hey, can we just talk about this? Most people are reasonable enough to just say, okay, yeah, this is what I was expecting, this, and just go through it. And it works out.
Yeah.
Because you talk about it.
Once you both see each other's perspective, oh, I was over here, you were over here, or, oh,
yes,
sorry, I didn't know that this was your expectation that I had no clue you had, but now I know, right? And now I can try to facilitate that.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of personal work these last couple of years. And so let's kind of start there, because I think that, you're noticing there's the sensitivity part of you that didn't like confrontation, but then you also knew it was a part of you. How did the last couple of years teach you to kind of overcome some of these personal areas that agents might be struggling with, right? If they're scared to do an activity, or they just feel like they're not maybe good enough in this area. How has some of the personal work that you've done translated to business work for you?
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. And I want to go back to what I said about being a psychiatrist and hearing all these people's stories, and how can you, back before these last couple of years, like you said, I've been doing a lot of this personal work. Back before, I would not have been able to handle that. I would have taken all of that stuff in, and it would have just like ate at me and just like brought me down and down and down and down.
It's a lot of heavy weight to carry around.
Yes. So, but what I found is the last couple of years about doing this work and doing the personal work and finding myself basically through all of this, is that I had to find out who I was. And I had to know who I was in my heart. And just go deep into there and just say, okay, who are you? And over the last couple of years, I think I made some progress. I know I have a lot more progress to go.
Give yourself some credit.
It seems like there's always something to work on, but really, and it started, I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you know this, if you know how much of a part you played in my turnaround, but I walked in the office, just like any other day, and you were already in there because you're always in early in the office and stuff. So I walk into the office and you said, hey, that normal question that everybody asks when they see their friend walk into the office or anywhere, and you said, hey, how's it going? Now, my normal response is, I'm fine. But that day, for whatever reason, like this thing like smacked me upside the head and said, be authentic and real. And I said, I feel like I'm just waiting to die. And I don't even know where that came from. I never thought that before.
Yeah.
But it just came out that morning. And not that I was, thinking about ending my life, but it was just like, I'm just like going through the motions.
Not living.
So
many of us are in that category.
It's like you get up, you eat breakfast, you go to work, you go home, you have dinner, you watch a little TV, and then you start the whole thing all over again.
Right.
And that's just where I was. And I remember you just like, you didn't say, oh, come on now, suck it up or anything like that. You just gave me an invitation. And you said, I think you should come to this seminar with me. And you said, just come. I'll take care of the ticket. Just come. And that started the whole thing.
Ooh.
Went to the seminar and then went to this training program, went to this other retreat up in the mountains. And it was all about finding out who I was and giving me a reason to live life and not just do the routine.
Get by, the slowly
Yep.
die. I think there's so many people out there that can relate to that, and on just my own personal opinion, we have just so much in our lives. It's a burden to have to pay high interest rates. It's a burden to have to pay the cost of living and food and kids and work and job and AI and all these things that are, cell phones and what they do to us and our brains and the overstimulation. And so I think a lot of people can relate to just getting by, right? They're not thriving. They're not very happy. They're literally just pushing through the best they can just to tick off another day.
Yeah.
So if someone's experiencing that, where could they start? What's some lessons that you've learned that they could start to kind of look into to kind of challenge, to say, maybe pull themselves out in a different way that maybe we're not used to.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start with, again, my background's architecture. So I've kind of come up with this analogy. So when you take a client, for instance, to a showing, you're going to show somebody a house, and you're walking through the house, do your clients ever, in all the years you've been doing this, you've been doing this for a long time, have they ever walked out of that house and just said, man, those footings and the foundation of the house was awesome? Anybody ever say that?
No, never.
So taking the architectural analysis into this whole thing about, what can we do, is I look at the footings and foundations. The footings and foundations, they hold the whole house up. Your clients never go in there and look at them because they're buried into the ground and everything. And they never point that out as something, but it's holding the whole thing up.
It's key. It's the most critical component, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's what I like to look at that as the footings and foundation. That's you. That's connection with yourself, and actually knowing who you are, and making sure that you're good with who you are. Then that builds a stable foundation that holds the whole thing up, and then you build up the walls and the framework and the beams and the things that hold the house, up above that. That's connection with other people. But it's hard to connect with other people if you don't know who you are. And especially if you don't love yourself, you can't love other people. So in doing that, then you put the roof on. And that kind of just protects the whole house, right? That just covers it, protects it from the elements and all that kind of stuff. And for me, that's connection with God or a higher power. And so that just builds the whole thing. But you can't do anything until you start with that footing and the foundation, down there solid. So for me, finding that out and to your question, what can we do? For me, my number one thing that I do is every day I write in my journal, and I call it my gratitude journal. And I just write down every morning. I get up, and I write in there, and I just write out things I'm grateful for every single day. Because I think when we're grateful, when we have this gratitude in our hearts, then we understand that our lives are pretty good. And if you can write those things out, and particularly I start with I am. I am grateful for da-da-da. And that I am statement I found out is so powerful, because after I write out things that I'm grateful for, then I write out things that I want to be. So then I write out, I am unstoppable, or I am worthy, or I am loved. And you write those statements out because it does something in your heart to just cement that in there of who you are. And my last statement that I always write out is, I am a courageous and authentic son of God. Because that just grounds me. It just grounds me in that. So then when I'm out there and I'm working with clients on something and things are going bad, things are not going right, or things aren't clicking, or, they have to back out because the interest rates just jumped up or whatever. Things always happen. Yeah. Somebody cut you off on the freeway. Does that ever happen to anybody?
No, never.
But I can always look at that and go, okay, who am I? That person, maybe they're rushing to the hospital because a family member just got in a car wreck or something, and they're on their way. So I can just hold back, and I'm not angry at them for what they're doing. I'm just with myself, and I'm doing my thing, and I'm centered in myself and who I am. And then those things don't bother me as much as they used to.
I love that advice. Such great advice. I mean, the personal work, my belief is that your inner world reflects your outer world, right? And if you want more success, more happiness, more freedom on the outside, guess what you got to do? You got to face yourself, and you've got to find that on the inside. I know you do a lot of public speaking. You kind of teach this to people on a public speaking level, but I think you've got one more gem for us on finding yourself. I know that the process of writing is a great way, but for being centered, I think that's the key, right? Like people have to find first where their center is, because so many of us have lived lives to be what our parents want us to be, to be what society thinks we should be, to act how our friends, how everyone is like, no, this is how you should be. And so we adapt. I know me as a kid, I was very good at reading people so that I could show up how I think they wanted me to show up.
Yeah.
And, there was this world where that worked really, really, really good in sales because I could read people, but it was exhausting. It was not real, right? It was out of learned hurt and learned ways to adapt. Once I started to peel that back and recognize, like, why am I like, isn't there a way for me to just show up authentically, right? And go into the seminar that I recommended to you, doing the work myself, I found this world where it actually is the very same thing, right? Like I'm still trying to make the sell, but it's coming from a centered self of authenticity of like, look, this is who I know I am, right? This is how I'm going to show up for you. And that confidence, right, actually translates so much more powerful to the client than even the best trained mind on how to mirror match your body language, right? On how to like tone and downswings and upswings and proposing questions, right? Where all that's to the side. So what else should people be looking at if they kind of want to go down this journey of discovering who they actually are?
Yeah, I love that. I love that because there are a lot of books and seminars and podcasts and things that you can follow, like you say, to become a good salesperson and really make that sale kind of a thing. And yeah, I think it's in my statement about being authentic. And it works for some people, and maybe some people it may not, they get a little bit like scared of that. But just like you, I'm the oldest of 11 kids. And growing up, being the oldest, I had this, whether or not my parents put it on me consciously or subconsciously, or whether I took it on myself, I just had a lot of responsibility, for my brothers and sisters. And it was like, at a young age, I was babysitting them and I was taking care of them and all of this stuff. And it was just a lot that I took on, trying to be who they wanted me to be.
And let's give you credit. That's a good big brother.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Sure.
Put it for what it is. Your initial reasoning behind it was love.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it wasn't like a terrible thing, but over time, this taking that on, what it did is it built up masks that I had to wear these masks, and be, like you said, somebody that I wasn't really, and trying to please people, trying to be that responsible one and not really like let go. A thing that my wife likes to always tell me is, and we've been married 36 years now, so she knows me pretty good, but she always tells me, you really weren't ever a kid, were you? Mm-hmm. And that was part of the consequences of, taking on that responsibility at a young age, was I had to grow up fast, which, like you say, it's not bad and it can be good, but there are some consequences to that, in that I really never was able to like let go and just be a kid and play carefree and be whatever. And I say never because I probably did, but I don't remember. I just remember all of those rules and all of the things like that. So now I'm like in my 50s and I'm more of a kid now than I think I ever was. And I'm just like, I just like to play. I play with the grandkids, just get on the floor and just crawl around with them and all this kind of stuff. So I'm more playful and more childlike in that sense now than I was when I was actually a child, I think. And so, again, good, bad, and different, I don't know, but I sure enjoy living life that way and just having more fun and just looking at things more in a just fun, authentic kind of way and just being who I am. And so I used to always want to fit into these niches, and I'm going to be on the football team in high school so that I can be cool.
Yes,
I can be a jock.
Yes, people like me.
Yeah. And I mean, I was somewhat athletic, but I really wasn't that good. I never really, started on the varsity team or anything like that. But I sure walked around the high school hallways with my Letterman's jacket on. Yeah, cool, So, but that wasn't really me. And I'll tell you, this is the story that showed me that wasn't me. But then it took me years afterwards to really get into that. So my senior year in high school, I'd been, I wrestled and I played baseball, I played football, so I could have my Letterman's jacket and I could be a cool person and everything. And then it was towards the end of my senior year. And remember when they used to do assemblies and stuff? I don't know if they still do those, but they do assemblies, and all the school comes together and they have these little skits up on stage and everything. And I remember always thinking that those drama people that did those skits and stuff, that they were so stupid. They were so dumb.
Judgy jocks.
I know, judgy jocks, know? Yeah. And so, but I got talked into doing a skit at this year-end assembly. And I remember we did it, and it had something to do with I think it was the Stripes kind of marching thing. If you remember the movie Stripes, I don't know. And we had these fake wood gun kind of things, and we were doing this little thing. And I remember when we got done with that, thinking that was the funnest thing I have done ever in high school. And I remember just thinking, that was so cool. I loved it. And so I had gone 4 years of high school thinking what I wanted to be was the cool jock. And then at the very end of my senior year, I find out, man, that sure was fun, just doing a skit on stage and just having fun. And so I look back on that and think, I wasted a lot of years there trying to be something that didn't give me really any joy. Thinking back to those 2-a-days on the football field. And I could have been doing something more authentic to myself and just enjoyed being myself. And so now I look back on it and I go, yeah, there's so many people that are just wearing these masks. They're being somebody that they think other people makes them fit in with other people, and just rip the mask off and just be authentically you, because people are going, I don't know, I think there's something about being authentic that people really connect with.
It wins every time.
Yeah.
It wins every time, because that is the human connection, right? It is the quickest way for us to gain trust is for me to be who I am at my core, not the mask of the jock of who I think I am, right?
Yeah.
That is actually the opposite of what we're talking about. And I actually want to bring this full circle, because my favorite part of this interview is what we're talking now. But I think people need to understand who you were and how far you've come. And I get the pleasure of saying that from my perspective, as I have got to know you for 12 plus years. And you were this really kind-hearted person that had so much structure, and it had to be fit in your box of your rules and your way, and it made you rigid. And I am in that same boat, right? I was so rigid myself, and to see you do the work, to see you see the masks, and I really like how you compared it to your childhood with you being the oldest of 11, right? You were the very responsible one of the most responsible people I've ever known, right? And you wore that as like a badge of honor. But it wasn't until you started letting go of that and giving yourself some grace and just be like, hey, like, I get to have fun, right? And as you started to like take that example of the skit, right? That's what I saw in your real estate career was that exact same thing unfolded is your 50s where you're like, why aren't I having fun? And I want to just say to everybody right now, is your business booming and you're like the top agent cranking it like crazy?
No.
Is your architecture the number one in the state and your business is like everything you've ever dreamed of?
No.
But you're happier.
Very happy.
You are so much better off. And so in conclusion, just speak just for a little bit about the power and the strength that you've kind of felt that we're not here because your circumstances have changed, right? On the outside.
No.
There's still a lot of challenges on the outside that you want to get better at and improve. So why is it on the inside so good right now?
Thank you.
And give your final thoughts for him.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that because we're our own worst critic, aren't we? And for you to, I mean, like you said, we've been friends for more than 12 years now. And for you to say that, what you've seen happen with me, you know, I don't see that a lot. I know I've changed a lot and I've grown. But when I look in the mirror, I still see that old person in me a lot of times. You know, I still see
the harsh critic comes out a little bit.
The harsh critic comes out. So for you to say that and what you've seen change in me, I appreciate that. That was very nice of you to say that. So I guess I can sum up this final point with this story. We've been having a pretty mild winter, shall we say?
Yeah, crazy for Utah.
Yeah.
So crazy.
So just a couple of weeks ago, I had a couple of grandkids over from my oldest daughter. She has 2 grandkids. And one of them's 4. The oldest is 4. The other one's like a year-old. And so we have a little park with a little swing set right by our house. And they were over at the house, and Atlas is the 4-year-old. He wanted to go out to go swinging. So I'm like, okay, let's go. Because I'm trying to be more just like, let's go, let's play, let's do things, you know. And so I was like, yeah, let's go. So we were out there and the sun was out. It wasn't real warm, but the sun was out, you know. It's like weird weather in November or whatever it was. And I'm just pushing him on the swing. And then my wife comes out with the youngest and just brings him out. Let's put a blanket on the grass, and he's just kind of crawling around there and stuff. And I remember pushing him and thinking to myself, should I be working? I should be making some calls and getting on the phone and getting some more work, getting some more clients. And then I thought, no. Right now, my heart is telling me I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm with my grandkids. I'm outside, just pushing him on a swing. He's giggling and laughing. And I'm like, there'll be more times for me to drum up business and work hard. But right now, my heart's saying, just do this. Play with the grandkids. So I guess that's how I would like kind of sum it all up, being inside and just content with who I've become was that situation. Because my old self would have just been itching to like, okay, how quickly can we push the swing and get this done with so I can get back to work?
Yep.
Yeah. And in that moment, I was just happy and content to just be grandpa and push my grandson on a swing.
I love that. I think we call that being in the present moment, right?
And I've had a hard time my whole life being in the present moment.
Yeah.
But I'm learning it now. So,
well, man, you're an inspiration. Redwig speaking.
yes.
Is your public speaking company if anybody wants to.
Yeah, redwoodspeaking.com or just my name, kirkbaumgartner.com. That also takes it to that same website.
Awesome, man. We appreciate Kirk. Amazing person. So glad for you to take the time, share your story, be vulnerable, right? And it's always a pleasure to hang out with you and talk to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm so glad that you asked me to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Good job.
Wow.
50, huh?
Is that really? That got fast.
Yep. Wow, that was fun.
That was really fun.
That was way fun. I could do that more often, man. Could you imagine just deep diving with people?
I know.
Some of their stories and masks and stuff like that. That would be fun to kind of create a structure where people could see how the process of healing works. And, and I think it's a pretty basic structure of like remove the mask, be aware of the mask first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
Then once you see it, figure out where did this come from? And then dismantle it into the healthy form.
Yeah.
Right? Because like your example of the siblings was the perfect one. Then it's still you. You know what I mean? You're still a good, responsible, organized, which makes you, but you're just now doing it from a healthy place.
Yeah.
So I love that stuff.
Yeah. It's last night, Tracy asked me, she's like, are you nervous to do the podcast? And I was like, I'm not. Every time I've done one, I don't get nervous before them because it's just a conversation. And it's about who I am or who I'm becoming.
Right.
And so it's just real.
Different, huh?
Yeah. It's just, okay, yeah, we're just talking about these things. So it just feels good to talk about.
I would say like the mental bandwidth that it takes someone to show up in a mask of like, I got to be perfect. I got to sound great. I got to answer the questions with precision and smiling. And, right. That stuff that is energetically exhausting.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Exhausting. If you've always got to be faking how you're trying to show up, like no wonder we wake up one day and we're like, I don't want to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to live. No, duh. Because you've been exhausting and outsourcing to everybody else instead of yourself.
And that is a super good point that I need to like make that connection better. Because when you got that mask on and you're trying to do, it exhausts you. You get done at the end of the day and you're just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that's your body's way of telling you, bro, be authentic.
Yeah.
Be authentic in who you are, because this way is not working anymore. Yeah. We're done with it. We're tired with it. And I think we're hitting a critical point in like society's history where, like we talked about at the beginning of the show with the stress, financial stress, right? Like people, they're kind of just hitting that breaking point where like, this is not working for any of us.
Yeah.
And more people need to know about this message.
And I've been thinking about it. I've been wondering, okay, why did our grandparents and our great-grandparents not have these same kinds of, mental breakdowns or these issues that we talk about now? And you have so many people talking about this mental health and all this kind of stuff and all that stuff. And I think, why didn't they do that? So then I was thinking about it the other day and it was like, okay, what did they do though? Every day they got up and they worked the land.
Mm-hmm. They were in nature.
Yeah. And they're working with their hands and they work the land and they come home and physically they're exhausted, but mentally they're free.
Yes.
They've been just
processing their thoughts, emotions, all that stuff.
All that stuff. So they're like mentally, they're just so stable and set. And for us, we live in a time and an age where we don't work the land. We don't really do anything. We just like rush in the car here or the car there, running there and just doing all this stuff. And we're throwing all this other stress on ourselves. And we're just not like, we don't have that physical kind of release kind of a thing where working the land does that. And we're never alone because we got our phone on. And, instantaneously with all this stuff. So,
which real quick, the phone, what is so dangerous about it that I've come to learn is that it's the instant boredom that when those feelings that are a little bit uncomfortable for you to kind of sit with and be like, I am sad. I am not feeling great. Instead of sitting with that and really like tuning into why am I feeling that way and just feeling the feelings, right? Not even storing of why, but just feeling those feelings and been like, man, I feel exhausted and I'm tired, and honoring yourself for that. We don't do that because it feels a little too uncomfortable, a little too foreign. So when the opportunity comes, we're like, nope, get my phone.
Yep.
Distract me. and it feels like peace for a second.
Yes.
But it is not recharging you at all.
No. And I find myself even falling into that trap where it's just like,
I've been on my phone for 45 minutes.
And I'm just like anxious. I just oh yeah, scroll. Just looking at reels. And then, the time goes by and you're like, oh my goodness, why am I doing this? You know, and at least I feel like I'm becoming more aware to say, throw the phone away, get that on the other side of the room. I don't need that.
That's been my win this last week and a half, is just with the holidays, overeating.
Oh.
Right. So hard.
All the neighbor gifts of candy and cookies.
and so like, I'm like, been living in this amazing world where everything's taken off and life is so beautiful and so much more peaceful and happier. And then I start to see myself going back to a bad habit. Right.
Yeah.
And then like, there was this part of like kind of getting bugged at myself versus the win, which came to me is like, dude, the fact that you're just aware of this, that is better than anything you've done in the past.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Old you would have just kept eating and then use some willpower January 1st to say, okay. And I would have still done it. But like new me is like, hey, at least I'm just aware that I am in a pattern where I'm doing this stuff and I'm overeating, and that's okay. Like, I'm going to try to change it. But on the flip side too, I'm going to give myself grace, because everyone I freaking talk to, they all have the same problem around Christmas time with all the neighbor gifts and all the candy and all this stuff. It's not just me, it's all of us. And as soon as I gave myself that little bit of grace, it was like, oh, now it's suddenly, I can correct the behavior way better than what willpower is going to try to do for me.
Isn't that fun though, to like at least be that point where you can recognize it and say, okay, I get it. I can see it. I recognize the patterns I'm in right now, and I can just like, okay, like you say, give yourself a little grace, give yourself a little bit of say, hey, it's okay. It's all right. I work out like da. I've been good through all of this time period.
Yeah.
It's okay to just relax for a little bit and just know, okay, I'm going to let it flow for a little bit, and then I'm going back to my discipline and going back to that.
Well, and I think that's a really good example of what we were talking about earlier, when you're adding weight to yourself by beating yourself up, right?
Yeah.
And I know the fear, like people out there are like, yeah, but if I just be like, oh, I don't care, then I'm going to eat and I'm going to be 500 pounds. But it doesn't work like that.
No.
I was one of those skeptics. It's like, no, I've got to hold myself accountable. I've got to like be up on it because I don't want to turn into 500 pounds. But it's the opposite. When you let go and you don't get so bugged at yourself, you're actually letting go of weight, which will allow you to then change the behavior, because you're filling yourself up with more love, more grace, more leeway, which is what you need to then, right? It's support. You're supporting yourself, right? Just like if I committed to work out on my own, I would do pretty good. But if I committed to work out with you, I would do better, because you're my support. You're going to help push me on the days that I'm not there.
Yeah.
But people can do that for themselves by letting go, right? By letting go and saying, hey, I don't have to be perfect. I get to give myself some grace because it is Christmas time. And the craziest thing happens, I know it's unbelievable, but the craziest thing happens is when you do that, you're filling yourself back up with love and positivity and authenticity, because it actually would be inauthentic of you to say that Kirk's never going to touch an ounce of sugar
Right.
ever again.
Yeah.
Right? That's actually more inauthentic. And then the weight gets heavier versus like, no, I get to be a human.
Yeah.
And then you'll actually correct the behavior better and your eating patterns will improve better than any other way.
And I love that because it's so true. And I found that out this year when we went on vacation for 2 weeks to Scandinavia. No working out, you know. I usually bike 5 to 6 days a week, and I'm doing 30 to 40 to 50 miles a day. And that's how I, maintain my exercise routine and everything. But I'm on vacation 2 full weeks, and I'm like, oh man, what am I going to come back looking like, And we ate, and granted, we're walking a lot over there, but we just ate. We'd just be walking down the street and be like, oh, there's an ice cream stand. Let's go get some ice cream. And trying all these different kinds of foods and everything. 2 full weeks, not giving a care at all about working out or anything. Come back, and I'm like a pound or 2 heavier.
Nice.
And so it was like, yeah, I let all that stress, I let all that just go and just said, hey, I'm on vacation. We're just having a good time. And don't, like you say, pile that weight on and that stress of it all. So I think you can do that every once in a while and just. And
the funny thing is, you're there to enjoy.
Yeah.
So like eating the food and then not enjoying it because you're beating yourself up because you're going to gain weight or whatever, like that's stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but there is a kind of a mental thing there that I'm saying to myself, okay, I'm not going to pig out, but I'm going to enjoy the food.
Yes.
And so, if you could translate that into like your regular life, it's going to be the same kind of a thing. I'm not going to pig out, but I will enjoy.
Yeah.
And, I think there's a lot to be said, what you said about that stress you put on yourself, that actually breaks down your body and makes you more unhealthy than eating the food and enjoying it.
And it's kind of cool full circle moment right now that we're coming to is that the more you do that with yourself, why it works is because you're ultimately leading yourself back to the present moment, right? Where you talked about pushing your grandkid, right? Where it's like if you're going to eat the dessert, be present and enjoy every single bite of the dessert.
Yeah.
That is the best way for you to be satisfied and to enjoy, so that next time that dessert, the very next day, pops up, you're actually present enough that you're not stress eating, right?
Yeah.
You're not doing it to soothe yourself. You're actually just like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And so you're a lot more likely to pass it up the next time because you were present the last time you did.
And when I'm in Estonia, and I just went to the coolest little bakery and got this cardamom cinnamon roll that they just pulled out of the oven. And I'm eating that as I'm walking down these old streets of Estonia that's like from the 1400s or 1200s or something like that. And I'm just like in the moment, just like check out these castles and check out that church and just like walking.
The architecture
the architecture was so cool. And you're just eating the cinnamon roll and it's like doesn't really, I'm just there.
Yeah.
And I'm just enjoying the moment. So like you say, yeah, living in the present is, I think, a huge thing.
Okay. Well, I think these guys think that we weren't done, but we've been done for 13 minutes.